Welcome to Find Your Strong, the podcast that's here to help you free yourself from food rules, fitness guilt, and those weird detox teas.
Oh, do not get me started, Ella.
All right, I won't. I'm Ella, nutritionist and intuitive eating counselor.
And I'm Christine, personal trainer, intuitive eating counselor, and your hype woman for joyful movement.
You are, woohoo! Together we talk to experts, share stories, and hopefully leave you feeling a bit more at home in your body.
So if you're ready, let's find your strong. And coming up in the podcast today, we've got Stefanie Michele, and we had a cracking chat with Stefanie, didn't we?
Oh, it was amazing. Really loved it. We could have talked for way longer than we did.
I think you'll be really blown away by the conversation, so please just keep listening. Stefanie Michele is her full name. She's a coach, a writer, a somatic practitioner, and certified intuitive eating counselor like ourselves, Ella.
Good company.
Yeah. She draws on both her professional training and her own lived experience of recovery to help people heal from binge eating, restriction cycles, body image struggles, and the pull of diet culture. So this was kind of unexpected for me. I wasn't expecting to feel so blown away by it and invested in it. I think she's got a really novel way of approaching body image that almost just takes the pressure off.
Oh, absolutely. And she's so relatable. That's something that really stood out for me. Because of that lived experience, because of the sort of different angles that she comes from, it helps to kind of make sense of things, I found. I absolutely loved what she shared with us.
And as you're saying, I think because she's only been sort of in full recovery for 6 years, she remembers how it felt to be right in it, which can be really helpful for anybody else who's kind of struggling at the minute. I think you're going to really enjoy the conversation. So stay tuned and give us your feedback afterwards. Welcome to Find Your Strong. How are you doing, everybody? Today we've got a really, really special guest for you. We have got Stefanie Michele, all the way from New Jersey today. Welcome, Stefanie.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Oh, we're very excited, aren't we, Ella?
Oh God, yes, very much
excited.
so. We've been sort of following your journey for a long time, and listened to your
that's
podcasts
nice.
and everything. Yes.
Oh, I didn't realize. That's very nice.
Oh God, yeah. Life After Diets has been like the one podcast that I recommend to all my clients.
That's great.
So good.
That's so nice to hear.
So
Thank
good.
you
It's
so
so
much.
relatable. Absolutely wonderful.
And we interviewed Sarah a couple of months ago, was it?
Yeah, I think it is
Oh my
now.
goodness, where's the time gone? But that was lovely. And on that note, I hear that she's leaving the podcast.
That's so funny because it was just announced today.
Oh,
Yes, she is pursuing in-person work and in-person workshops and wants to be more in the community, like face to face. So she had to make room. And so it was kind of a natural time for her to leave. So I'm going to be continuing the podcast. I don't know how exactly it will look, but I'm going for it because I really enjoy podcasting.
Oh, fabulous. Well, we're hoping for a long time to come with you hosting it. Are you looking for another co-host, or do you think you're going to
Maybe. I mean, I think that I really like having someone to bounce off of. I think it works well. For the time being, I'll just be talking to my own microphone, but we'll see what happens. I'm open to a new podcast host in time as I mourn this loss, but
that's just, I mean, I was on my own for a long time before. Well, not a long time, like a year before you came along, wasn't I, Ella?
Yeah.
And it's much nicer now. I really enjoyed it on my own, but it's just so different with somebody else. It's just,
I can imagine.
Yeah.
More planning is going to be involved if I'm talking by myself. I like to just go off the cuff. So we'll see.
But Stefanie, as we were talking before we hit record, we're really interested to just ask you a little bit about your story and whether I say your body story, but really just how you came to this work, which is binge eating recovery, binge eating disorder recovery, and just, how you came into the work, your own experience and anything you want to share and
Yeah.
take your time.
Oh, okay. Because it's a long story.
Yeah.
I always try to condense it, but well, it started as with most of us, right, in younger ages, right? So I was in adolescence and I had dieted and was just peripherally kind of dieting with my friends and things like that. But it had turned into much more of a restrictive disorder in my teens as a result of lots of things going on in my life and in my family dynamics and things like that. And it became a highly restrictive. I was never diagnosed with anorexia, but it was that. And I one day, um, I had a binge one day, and it came out of nowhere. It came, I mean, to my mind, I didn't know what was happening, but I remember opening the refrigerator and seeing these foods in there that my mom had prepared for like a get. She was having a party at our house, and she'd made all this food. And I didn't touch that stuff. Like that was just off limits to me. It wasn't even something I entertained. But I remember looking at this bowl of pasta salad that she'd made, and I just watched my hand like go get it. And then I took a bite, and I just kept eating it and eating it. And the whole time I was like kind of outside myself, like just watching, like, what is happening? Like, this isn't happening. This isn't happening. This isn't happening.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the first time that I ever binged. And I didn't have a name for it. I just thought I had broken these rules and I had gone crazy and I had become out of control and this would never happen again. And well, this started a cascade of binge restrict, binge restrict, binge restrict, which eventually turned into bulimia as well. And that carried on for decades. And every year I was always getting it together and I was going to fix it this year and things were going to change. And I tried and I tried, and it was all variation of disorder the entire time. I developed orthorexia as well. I don't know if you talk about that.
Yeah.
In my 30s. Yeah. So I had kids, I got married. I don't know how that happened because my life was this disorder. I was always just living against my body, trying to shrink it, just battling its natural appetite and natural weight set range. I'm a mid-sized person. This is just where my body is. And, I wanted it to be smaller and smaller and smaller. And so it's just me fighting my body for decades. And I was just turning 40 at this time where, people ask me what changed or what happened to inspire recovery, and I don't know that it was any one thing. It was just sheer exhaustion. I was coming off of a fasting regimen, which made everything 10 times worse, and I just couldn't do it anymore. And I was like, I'm going to be 40 and I'm going to be 50 and I'll still be doing this, and it's not any different. This is all the same thing all the time, and that's insanity. So I had picked up a copy of The Fuck It Diet. Am I allowed to curse?
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
sure. Go ahead. We love a bit of curse.
Because that's, and it
And
was by
that is the
Caroline.
title of the book.
That
so
is the
it's not
title of
even
the
you,
book.
right?
I'm not saying anything that isn't, fair game. But I found that book and I read the book, and it's by Caroline Dooner, who no longer works in this field, but she at the time was this voice to me of like, I have never heard anyone talking about food like this and eating like this. And it resonated. Every line just landed for me. And I went on this kind of recovery path starting on my 40th birthday where I just wasn't going to restrict anymore. And I started that process. It was an all-in recovery method, and it was the only thing that ever worked for me. And that was the beginning of it. And at this point, that's 6 years ago. So I ended up coaching around this because I was like, this is what I want to help people do. If I can recover from this, this is what I want. And I love to write and I love to create posts and things. So I got on social media and I started a podcast and I started a coaching practice. And I'm certified now in intuitive eating and somatic experiencing, which is a nervous system regulation and trauma healing approach. And that's where I am now. And I never looked back. Well, actually, I do look back all the time to talk about it on the podcast, but.
And so there's so much there. Thank
yeah.
you for sharing that. we really appreciate it. There's at what point did you think I'm far enough away from it to be able to maybe help other people? Because It's something that I've always wanted to get into, this role of helping people with eating disorders, because I think it's the helpy becomes the helper. But
Yeah.
often I felt too close to it. So
Yeah.
for many years I felt too close to it. So I had to kind of push it away. When did you kind of feel, actually, I'm ready?
Well, it started with sharing. So I was on Instagram and I started to post about a year in, um, about just because I had also been, by the way, a sugar detox coach. So I was an occupational therapist, and on the side, I was a health coach. I'm certified from the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, which, was basically just a lot of promoting obsession with clean eating and things like that. So I had this platform that I had been coaching with, and I started to talk about food obsession and binge eating, and I introduced that, and was just really doing it for me. I was really just kind of almost processing and organizing my own thoughts around this, and really observing, like, look what happens when you stop obsessing about this stuff, when you're not like demonizing sugar, and look at what has changed for me. And I was writing and writing and writing, and somebody reached out to me to say, do you coach? They had inquired. I remember being like, what? Well, like, I had a coaching certification, but it wasn't for this.
Mm.
And I was like, this is what I do want to coach. Like, this is exactly what I want to do. At which point I did start getting my intuitive eating certification. I started that process of working for that. Um, and there was something about recovery for me that was so, and it still is this way. There's something that became so clear. Like, I don't think I could have that disorder again. It almost feels like impossible from the vantage point of just understanding what was going on in my body and really, really feeling in my soul, like, I understand why I binged. I get it. I understand what restriction is. I understand the undercurrents of emotions that inspire that. And it's like, once you see the man behind the curtain, you can't unsee it. And
Mm.
that felt so solid to me that I felt competent to kind of be like, I get what this is. And so I think I can help people. And even if I'm just a few steps, into it beyond where they are, that's a place where I still have something to offer. And so I then continued with certifications and things, but it really came from a solidarity of really feeling recovered, which I know is a tricky thing to talk about.
Mm. Yeah.
It's something. Sorry, Ella. I'm totally. Don't.
Well, go for it. I might forget my question.
But it's something that I've been thinking an awful lot about, is the origins of an eating disorder. And obviously, it's if you're helping somebody through the eating part, or you're yourself recovering through the eating part, is that, what about the cause of the eating disorder? So I've been thinking a lot about the eating disorder. For me, was very much a coping mechanism. It was a way to cope with life, which was very hard when I was growing up. And then, so that was always where I put all my emotion, was into that.
Yeah.
So it was great once I realized, I realized about diet culture, the blinkers came off. Absolutely. I was like, no, I'm not going to eat like that again. But then it jumped to other things that I needed.
Yeah.
So can you just deal with the eating behaviors? Do you need to delve right back into trauma and childhood? And so can somebody
Yeah.
recover from the eating disorder without doing that?
Without that deeper work.
Mm,
So a lot of times I work alongside therapists because I
yeah.
think that the roles are different. And if I'm working with somebody who's got a diagnosed eating disorder, I find, especially with bulimia and anorexia as comorbidities with that, depression and anxiety as well, like, there's more than coaching, required
Yeah.
there. And so I work with teams of people in many cases. I also work, and this is what got me to somatic experiencing. So I was noticing that a lot of the people that I was working with had trauma, and that was the origin story of their eating disorder, and the way that, that trauma had showed up, and eating disorders managed it. And I Therapy is one way of dealing with that trauma and looking at that. Somatic experiencing is looking at the impact that trauma has on the nervous system. So
Mhm.
not just not just about processing a story or like even just talk therapy. It's more about what's going on in the body when that trauma is experienced, because this is the other side of it, right? And I do believe in story and talk therapy and processing cognitively. I absolutely do. But there's this missing component which lives here. And it's almost, it occurred to me as I was talking, how you could get it. You're like, I get it. I understand that this is how I control, or this is, that my body is not my worth. And you cognitively understand. But the behaviors are still coming from somewhere else. And it's like, oh, I don't feel safe enough. I don't feel safe enough to really be completely on board with that. And that discrepancy, I was like, what is that? And that to me is where that trauma lives, and that's in the body. And that's where, and the certification to become a somatic experiencing practitioner was 3 years long and very intensive, and not about processing through therapy, but about looking at how the nervous system is working, which is why I got that in conjunction with coaching, because it seemed like it is part and parcel of eating disorders. And again, not everybody who binges necessarily has a diagnosed eating disorder necessarily. So I think there's different ways, you can work with clients around this. But for the case of eating disorders, I do think there's something, whether it's stories or just residual in the nervous system that still acts, and that there's different ways of meeting that.
Is that something that you personally use for your own healing? Is that something that you started using and then thought, oh, I've got to train in this so that I can pass that on to my clients? Or
yeah. So my origin story, right, of eating disorders was a lot about relationship with my parents, and a lot of anger, and a lot of loneliness. And so there were some things that happened in my teens that I just, put away and just kept moving and never really got to dealing with. And so I had been speaking with somebody who's in this field as well, who I think she she thinks she's getting her PhD in somatic, like not somatic experiencing, but in somatic work. And she had brought this up to me and talked about it. And I was so intrigued by it. And I was like, oh, I've never done any kind of therapy like that. And I looked into it, and the more I learned about it, and then I sought out a therapist in this regard. And I found like just stuff I'd never found in therapy, in terms of how anger shows up in my body and how much of that was part of my eating disorder, like hugely. And I just was like, oh, this feeling right here, this is what would this, like, this was restriction the next minute. And then it was the binge the next minute. Like, this is what was there. And that part was a whole different way of feeling what happens to me. And it still happens in these small ways. It's like the nervous system works still, in even if it's about the past, in the present. And so as that was becoming more helpful to me in terms of regulating my own emotions and understanding what it meant to feel, without projecting it on something, that became something that I was like, I want to get certified in this, because this just all works hand in hand.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm super fascinated by it. And I'm also currently sort of looking into training in that sort of field, because I think I've noticed that is a gap that I feel like I have when I work with clients, because I sort of rudimentary know a few bits and pieces about it, but I think it would be so helpful, because as you said, talking therapy, amazing, reframing and thinking about stuff, amazing cognitively. But I feel like, and you probably can echo this, a lot of clients are so much in their heads.
Yeah.
And that's not the only place to be. And I think tapping into your body and trying to sort of explore, well, what is going on emotionally, and with your body is the missing link, really.
Yes. And I was just speaking with a client, and we did some somatic work at the beginning of the session, and then we moved to, she's like, well, I really want to set up a plan for X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, okay, we'll spend some time in the somatic realm, and then we'll go into the plan. And we did that. And she reflected later, she had sent me a WhatsApp message this morning, and she said, during the somatic practice, she goes, my brain is just like, all right, we got to get to the plan. We got to get to the plan. We got to get to the plan. She's like, and I realize that's what I'm always doing. Like, it's always about what's next, what's the future. Like, get out of here and get to the real stuff, And it's like that very that very reaction of the body doesn't matter, the body doesn't matter, like what's here is not where it's at, is the defense mechanism, right? Like that so much is going on up here. And that's exactly what we do in body image, with body image and eating disorders in particular. Not that that doesn't exist in other places too, but the emotions are in the body. Like that is, the thoughts are in the brain and emotions are here. And that's what we learn to get away from. So we go to the mind and it spins and it spins and it spins with the energy of the nervous system that's really all over, and it's hard to tolerate even the idea of doing this, because it feels like the opposite of safety. It feels like this is the opposite of the defenses we've created to get out of that. And so even just working with people for a long time on titrating doing it is it's an art to even like accept that this is something we're doing that like is helpful. And so, that's why we toggle a lot in sessions, but it took me a long time to feel invested in it, because I preferred to think. It was just much more comfortable.
Well, it's
I
what
still
we do
do.
best, isn't it?
Yeah. It keeps the emotions from being too threatening. And, it's just the way we're wired at some point, I think, for so many years.
Yeah.
I used to really think about, I used to be really into thought work, and I used to practice it and try it and it never quite hit home, because I very much, as we all do, we feel it in the body. And, my thoughts, I've just got so many thoughts constantly that it was just never going to happen. So I've definitely sort of prioritized nervous system regulation practices, even a few minutes a day, and whether that's tapping, whether that's, but I had an experience when my mum passed away this year, and I did this dance class, this contemporary dance class, and this is about sort of feeling. I had a visceral reaction to going back to that class. I was like, I can't dance. I cannot move my body in that way, because I knew the emotion that came up when I did that, and I knew that it just wouldn't work for me, and I couldn't explain it. And what I wanted to do was box, because I wanted to channel the emotion somehow and just find a way to not get it out of my body, but just not. I can't.
Did it feel like a safer way to release the emotion? The dancing would have come like, what?
No, it would have been
boxing.
too much emotion with the dancing, because and for some reason I just needed to punch something. And it felt much safer. Absolutely, Ella, that's exactly what it was. But I think that was the first time so intensely that I was like, wow, that was not about the brain at all. That was all in the body.
Yeah. But that's part of the intuition, is like even your own ability to register what you actually needed, like that you needed something more defensive or something more empowering potentially to hold this emotion at first anyway. And that we can go too much too fast. And that's why we backed off in the first place, is because there was such an overwhelm in the, potentially at first, that we were like, I'm, however old, when I first developed an eating disorder, I was, what do we know at 14 years old, and it's like, I can't contain all the things happening here. And so I have no other way to process this. So I'm just going to push it up here, and I'm going to do this down here, and I'm going to control this and control that. And to be able to figure out, like, how do you manage it in a titrated way so that you can hold it enough, and that you can hold it where it feels safe enough to do this, because I think that safety piece is the key, right? Like to be able to feel like I can handle it, I can hold it.
That's so interesting.
Safety, I think safety is massive. I feel like, so pivoting slightly, but on the same topic, I feel like sort of the nervous system regulation thing is currently all the rage. A lot of people are jumping on that bandwagon. And whilst it absolutely is evidence-based, and I've listened to a podcast today with Dan Harris, he interviewed a researcher in this, really good podcast, definitely recommend it. We might put it in the show notes, on the importance of de-stressing and nervous system regulation on our general health and well-being and aging and all of that. I think it opens the doors to quackery as well, and the sort of the wellness industry is jumping on it, as it always does. So is there anything that you say, well, there are certain things to look out for when people are looking into this? I mean, what should we be a bit mindful of? What what are red flags, and what do you find maybe helpful yourself that works
Yeah.
when you do it?
Well, the first thing I always say is that a lot, and because this is the field we work in, right? But a lot of it is food perfectionism. So I took a nervous system course when I was first getting into this, before I even had a therapist who worked in it. And a couple of weeks of the content was all about basically eating. I don't even want to like name it, but it was eating in a certain way that was very, extremely narrow and extremely perfectionistic, which stressed me out, And I think that there's so much disordered eating in the world. Even if you don't have an eating disorder, there's tons of disordered eating spectrum, and that's probably more common than it's not. And that where some of that's creeping into the perfectionism around, and perfectionism would be the red flag here, is like, are there a set of rules that you're supposed to follow that you have to do right and wrong to regulate your nervous system? And then it's a diet, or if it's not, it could just be a sleep protocol and things like that. And what I think that's doing is further stressing us all out, because we're not doing it right. And we're a culture of tons of pressure. Like, we have a lot of expectation and like ways of doing things this perfect way. And that is inherently dysregulating. I think nervous system regulation is less about like doing these practices I mean, I think that like formal practices can work for somebody, but it's less about that. It's less about a checklist. It's less about doing something this right way, mastering something. It's also less about fixing something. You are still going to be a human being. This cannot be a way that you're trying to get around having emotions, right? Like, we can't be like, well, I'm going to regulate my nervous system into calm so that I don't feel angry, or sad. The goal is not to feel always in control of your emotions, which is I think a lot of what it is marketed almost as, or maybe that's how people are using it. It's about being able to be a human being with all of the range of emotions that we have, and being able to stay with ourselves, with that. It is not a way to fix something, and it doesn't mean you have to be calm, and it doesn't mean you have to eat in a certain way. And that doesn't mean sleep, obviously there's a relationship between things like nutrition and sleep, and stress management, and hydration, and things like that, and movement, with health. But if it's coming from a place of, if I do these things, then I will be, that's then you're talking about perfectionism and performance. And that's not a nervous system regulating thing. That's a different thing entirely. And so I think it's about understanding where the directive is coming from, and also why you're there. Like, what are you looking to do with that? Do we have ideals about what this is going to do for us? Is this supposed to fix us? It won't. And that's also potentially a buzzkill for people who are like, I need something else to hold on to. And like you were saying, Christine, like to cling to help me save myself, or, the next thing to focus on.
I mean, I see it there's some parallels to how strength training is being promoted at the minute. So I've talked about this before, but one of my most popular posts ever was when I basically went on a rant saying, I'm stopping banging on about women lifting heavy all the time, because it's another thing that we have to do perfectly. And if you're not lifting quite heavy enough, you're not doing it right. And if you're not doing 3 sessions of this and 2 sessions of that, and going that, and not doing too much cardio, it's like, stop it, please stop it. That's not gonna, there's no sort of, as you said, there's no fix, there's no answer, there's no perfect way to do it. There simply isn't, because everybody's completely different. And that really struck a chord with people. And it just, what you said really sort of reminded me of that.
Yeah, there's sort of the perfectionism piece is massive, isn't it? It's that we want to do everything right and everything perfect, and whatever it is, we need to follow this and protocol and these sets of rules, and it's so interesting, and it kind of makes sense that clients that we work with, who are often perfectionistic in their tendencies, would latch on to something else like that, because if they're maybe letting go of rules around food, then they need something else that they need to be perfect at. So it gets transferred, doesn't it? So you could kind of see how that would snowball.
Yes. I think anything that mainstream gets its hands on, it's almost like, it's like, oh, darn it, it's getting too big. It's like, you can use things everything starts out as a good idea. It's
Yeah,
like a
yeah.
good, if it's kept in like its place, you know, like not to become the end all be all. And the second it becomes popular, it's the end all be all. I think the same thing happened with anti-diet culture as well. Like, and it becomes something new when it gets commodified. And then it's, again, it then appeals to the perfectionist in us. And I think it's so interesting too, that that was one of your most popular posts, because it's like, I find this as well. There's so many people who are like, we hate feeling all this pressure, and we're so relieved when somebody gives us permission to stop
Yeah.
chasing it, but we're all chasing it, you know, like it's like, but on the other side, it's just like, well, what else can I do to be perfect? You know, and it's just like, and it's such a push pull, I think, of the pursuit of it is very, very alive in our culture. And this feeling of, if I don't do it, I'm going to be left behind, or I'm going to miss something, or it won't be good enough. But meanwhile, we're all so tired of it, you know, and it's just an interesting thing to observe.
But I noticed a post of yours, which this is just showing exactly what you're saying. And it was you feeling like this was your way of regulating your nervous system, or just tuning in, was that you were feeling the comfort of the chair you were in, or of the blanket that you were. There was something, some texture, some. And I immediately went, but that's not enough. But I have to do at least, 10 minutes. I have to like sit and like meditate. And that's where my brain went to. But I can't just think about how I'm sitting and how do you know what I mean? My brain immediately went, no, that's not enough.
Yeah, that's not a practice, you know? And I think that's what somatic therapy has taught me, because it just integrates these small little pockets of awareness into a session that then you kind of carry forward. And the way I practice somatic work, if I ever start another podcast, it would be called, I think, The Reluctant Somatic, because I am reluctantly like, I don't do any protocols. I don't do any like morning rituals or anything like that. And there's nothing wrong with that, if I've just never been somebody like that. But I will sit here and I will notice outside my window this, you know, this tree that takes up all of the space. It's all just green. And sometimes I look at it and I like my shoulders go down, and like my breath comes in, and I can hear, my voice slows down a little bit and softens, and because I feel like a relaxation in my muscles when I really pay attention to it for a moment. And that's it. That's my somatic practice. That's what I do. Like it's just it weaves in the day, and it's just about noticing, like, do I need to just get into my body? Because I think all day, right? And it's just sometimes passing by the window and noticing something, or feeling that blanket for those few seconds that I'm sitting there, because it interrupts this. It interrupts all the thinking, all the living in my head that I'm prone to do, which I do. And it's just a break. And that invitation out is the titration. It is sort of like your nervous system's like being like, come into the body first. Okay, come back, integrate a little. Okay. And that to me is more realistic, and it's more effective over time, because there's something real in it that isn't about, okay, now here's my compartmentalized time to do these practices, because that starts to feel to me like, okay, that's a checklist, you know, and and I want it to be more integrated. And that's me, but that's all it has to be. Like, to say that it doesn't have to be fancier.
I love that so much. I use a similar approach with mindfulness, because people think, oh, they have to sit on a cushion for 20 minutes and be really mindful about everything, or have a mindful meal. And whilst, applauded, if people manage to do that, I feel like, well, can you brush your teeth mindfully? How can you integrate it into every day?
Yeah.
Can you walk down the street and actually just look around you? And I love how you sort of make it less of a formal thing, but more of a realistic, actually achievable thing. Because when we have all of these protocols, we're setting ourselves up to fail, because we probably won't have time. Something happens,
Right.
throws everything out of the water, and it's just like, oh damn, let's not bother.
Right.
But with that, sitting on the couch and feeling the cushion or the blanket that you've got with you, that's something you don't have to prepare for. That's just something that when you practice it, I love that so much.
Yeah.
I'm going to remember that.
Yeah. Can we circle back, because we're running out of time, which is
aren't we?
Can we circle back to a topic that we were really interested in chatting to you about, which there's a post that is, like, for me, I was going to say the perfect post, but now we can't talk about being perfect. You talk about 2 different ways of having a body. And we both loved this, because I'd never thought of it like that before. You talk about the objectified body and the living body. And I think I'm always trying to strive for the living body and not thinking at all about the objectified body, in the sense that if I do worry about my appearance, I immediately feel bad about it,
Yeah.
and that I shouldn't, be spending so much time on that. And
Yeah.
can you just sort of dig into that a little bit?
Yeah. This was another perfectionism thing because body positivity was, I think, more the word du jour when I first started recovering. And so I started looking into body positivity in the beginning. And I couldn't. I just was not capable of getting to a place of loving my objective body. And also, that's not my personality either. So I don't know what's what, but I I found it much more realistic to find body neutrality, which was not feeling neutral about my body. And that's a misconception. It doesn't mean that you don't care or that you're like, my body's fine. It's not what it is. It's that you can have a very visceral reaction to your body. And when I see myself in the mirror, sometimes, depending on the regulation, where my nervous system's at, I sometimes am like, oh, I have frustration. And again, that anger, not necessarily angered anymore, but something like that energy comes up. And I was like, you know what? I'm trying to fix this. I'm trying to make this go away. And it's not. My opinion is my opinion about the way I look because I have been socialized. So that's just there. And instead of trying to make that go away, I'd prefer to acknowledge that that's there and just be able to put it in a smaller container, like to be able to be like, yes, just the same way that, I don't know, something else takes up some of my attention, but not all of it. And that's neutrality, is to be able to kind of, it's not the whole thing. It's something you can be like, yes, I care, and I'm neutral about the fact that I care. So this living body versus objectified body was the acceptance of that. It was like, I prefer to live in first person and to live in a way where I'm experiencing my life from the inside out. This is my preferred place to be. I'm not thinking about how I look. And from that place, I am more regulated. When I do see myself in a reflection or a photo or become aware of my body as its image, I will have a response that is reflective of the society I have internalized. I will. And I don't need to I don't need this to be perfect. I don't need to make that go away in order for me to have good body image. Like, I just need to understand what to do with that and where to put that in its place and understand that is not all of my life. That is a piece of my body. My body is also experienced by me in this other way most of the time. And I can live with two things being true. And that set me free because then I didn't have the pressure of needing to fix it or needing to force myself into believing something about my body that I didn't believe, or even not caring. I'm allowed to care, and I do. And there are times when I care more than others, particularly shopping, or aging. I have reactions, and that's fine. That's not a deal breaker. Like, it's kind of like with the emotions. It's like we're not here to fix everything. We won't be able to. And so I'd rather just learn how to cope, which is kind of how I think about it.
So it's kind of the meaning that you attach to it, or rather that you don't attach to it. It's just like, it's there. I acknowledge it. Can't run away from it. Can't fix it. So it's a lot more. It's hard to practice that, but I think it's a lot more sort of balanced view to say, okay, well, this is there.
Yes.
Can't do anything about it, because that's the society we live in that dictates that, that's how we feel.
Yeah, it's kind of like having a parent who, like, when I grew up, if I felt anything, my mom would be like, it's not a big deal. It's not a big deal, And it's kind of like having a parent be like, oh, I totally get it. Like, yeah, that is a big deal. I understand. And also, here's what we're gonna, like, it's being able to be validated.
Yeah.
And also that it doesn't have to become the end all be all, right? So we don't need to spiral there. And you're right, it's not easy. So that's where the body image work for me has been, is like, how do I actually regulate that, the presence of that emotion, and not have it be taking up so much space? That was work. That was hard for me. But this was the theory behind the pursuit, like understanding that it is not an emergency when I feel activated. It's not, because that would make me more like, oh no, everything's falling apart. And it's like, no, it's not. You're just having feelings, and you might be sitting in this today. And it will also go away, because we know that we go into our living body a lot. So it will also pass, and we can tolerate this in the meantime.
I mean, that's such a great way of looking at it. It's because I think, aging definitely is kicking everybody in the butt at this sort of, I'm 49, Ella's 49, or birthday twins kind of.
Oh, really?
Well, no, we're not at all, but we're year twins.
Oh.
Yeah, good year. Good year.
Yeah. And I think I'm sort of turning 50. All of my best mates are turning 50 this year. This is our year of 50. And I have to take videos of myself every day because I train online and I have to upload videos. And there's many times which I will go, oh, and the panic I get, you talked about anger. There's a panic in me, if I see, oh my, what is my skin? What is that? And at that point, I could spiral and I could be in that for hours, like literally. But it's the second voice going, I can't believe you're worrying about this. I can't believe that's the bit that is actually the worst, because you feel so bad about feeling like that. You're like,
yeah. And you're like, I do this for a living. What?
Yeah.
I mean, no, of course you feel like that because you live in the world you live in. Like, especially now with all of the anti-aging campaigns, like we can't, I think it's unrealistic for us to expect that we wouldn't be influenced by that to some degree. We're influenced by things outside of our consciousness. So we fight consciously. I mean, I do, but there's stuff going on subconsciously, and that's not something I have control over, right? That's marketing, that's media, that's going to be there. And so I don't feel bad for when I have those moments because they're not my values, but it's the influence and it's the conditioning getting picked up on from ages ago too. It's the echoes and the memory of what it means to belong and to not belong and to, feel fear about even just, mortality and things like that. I mean, it can get existential, but it's totally reasonable to have those reactions, and I think it's more helpful to name them and to say, that's okay. How I'm going to hang out with myself in the meantime that's my role, right? To not self-abandon. And that's the skill to me.
Are you very, you can obviously say, I don't want to talk about it, but are you very conscious on how you talk about your body or food around your children, around your girls?
Yeah. So I don't talk about my body to my girls. So there was a period of time where I wouldn't talk about their bodies either. And I was very like, we don't talk about bodies. We don't talk about beauty. Like, I'm not going to tell you you're pretty. Like, I want you to value other things about yourself. And then I was like, well, that's also calling attention to it by the refusal to discuss it. So I talk openly with my high school daughter about it because she's at the age where she can understand that. And she knows my position on how I present it. Mostly is like, I think our culture is obsessed with bodies. And I think that our culture will convince us that we're supposed to be doing certain things, to look a certain way that we're supposed to look. And that we also should be telling other people what they should be doing and like judging them. And I point out the culture a lot. I don't talk so much about my like insecurities or vulnerabilities, right? Like, I don't go there because she hasn't asked yet, and I don't know if she did, she knows that I have a history with an eating disorder. She does know that. But I front face a lot more of my values to her. I also have told her that, there's times where it's hard to deal with a culture that is, that thinks one way when I think another way. And it makes it's difficult. And that's as much as we do talk about it because it just hasn't, I think as they get older, I would talk more about the actual ins and outs of it. But I think for purposes of raising them and where their questions are at now, that it's been more cultural commentary.
That resonates, that sort of going completely the other way, because I've done that for a while where I just did not comment. And I've loosened the reins a little bit, and I was like, oh, that looks nice on you, or you look great today.
Yeah, I do too.
And it's sort of like, oh, this is weird, me saying that, because I don't want to make it about appearance. But then I often sort of come back with like, but it's not the most important thing about you. Like, oh, damn it, how do you navigate this? Oh dear.
Well, I find it very hard to not get on my soapbox about like the Kardashians, for example.
Oh God. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I do, my daughter just gets so fed up with me. She's like, here we go. Just let me watch the show and enjoy it. And I'm
Yes.
like, do you know
Oh,
that they
yeah.
were peddling lollipops? I cannot stop myself. She's like, just stop it.
I know, I do the same. It's
I
like,
do too.
what do you notice in this scene? Look at them. They look the same. It's just,
I know.
like, let me watch the bloody film, mother.
Do you know that my daughter said to me, and I don't know if it's just her and it could be, but because I do the same thing. Again, it's the cultural commentary. It's like, do you see what the marketers are doing? And my daughter will be like, oh, Mom, like you're the only mom who like even talks about that, you know?
Yep.
One time, I will never forget it, and I'll keep reminding her of it. She said, I'm glad you do that. She said, I'm glad that I know. And she was like, it's annoying, but I'm glad that I know. And I took that and ran with it. And I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
because
That's
maybe
nice.
it's like, you know how they're teenagers, so they're going to be like, you're so annoying. But there might be a part of them that's like, but I might need that later, you know, like, or I'm glad to have that awareness, even though it's annoying. And I think it's the same as like the way, you know, do we roll our eyes when our parents like give us hugs at a certain age? Yes, but also, are we glad they're giving, you know what I mean? Like, are we taking that in? Yes. And I think, you know, that it's creating awareness in a society that otherwise you wouldn't have it, and they would bring you far, you know, to the other side, which is what happened to us. So I think it's I don't feel that bad about it.
No, I so agree with you there. I think it's really important, and I think it will sink in somewhere. I know I get the piss taken out of me by my children when someone makes a fat phobic comment. They look at me straight away like, "How's mummy going to react to that?" And they really know. They know my views on it, and it's sunk in. And you know, that's the only thing I can do. They're surrounded by peers and social media and films and media in general that tells them the other story. So, you know, if I get the odd eye roll for pointing something out, I take that. I don't mind.
Yeah, agree. I agree.
Oh, we're going to have to wrap it up, and I'm very, very, very sad because that was a fantastic conversation. We're so happy to have had you on.
Thank you
And we would love you to let us know where we can find you. If any listeners kind of are listening and just want to work with you immediately, what's the best way for them to contact you?
I do have a podcast called Life After Diets Podcast, which we'll see where that ends up going. But I am also, you can find me at I am Stefanie Michele on Substack, Instagram, lately TikTok. I'm dabbling. And my website is also iamstefaniemichele.com.
Brilliant. We'll put that in the show notes so that people can go straight to you.
Thank you.
And find out more.
And well done for doing TikTok. I haven't tried.
I'm just so scared of it. I don't think I'm going to go there.
I have a formula, and I just put up one kind of post all the time, and it takes me 2 seconds to write a sentence, and I just send it. And if it fails, that's fine.
No scrolling. No. Good.
Yeah. That's it.
But thank you so much, Stefanie. And thank
you for having me. It was really nice to meet you both.
Really lovely to meet you.